Welcome back to Chow Time Pods. Your host, Red. I got a video from Men Need to Be Heard. I usually cover Dan on my other channel, but this is an important topic, so I'm going to cover it on this main channel.
Every once in a while, an article comes along that accidentally tells the truth. Oh, not the truth it's intended to tell, but the truth it couldn't help revealing. And the one, actually two, that I'm about to discuss is revealing in many ways, not the least of which is how women are in full-blown panic over men walking away.
We knew.
And how they're grasping at any straw they can to avoid taking any responsibility for it. We're going to discuss not one, but two articles which illustrate that and why in the end, it's only going to drive even more men away. And one quick caveat I want to make is that while they are indeed two separate articles, for the most part, I'm going to treat them as one because essentially they both say the same thing.
Okay.
So recently, the New York Post released this article written by one Madison Colombo entitled, "Growing Trend of Hating Men Seems to Backfire as Anti-Marriage Movement Leaves Single Women Losing Out."
Damn. I've never seen a headline like that.
It's a classic feminist victimhood tale of how men are hurting women by refusing to allow women to paint them as the enemy, by responding to the hate directed at them, not with anger, not with vitriol, but with silence, the silence of walking away. What's interesting is how this article came out just a day after another one, which was in USA Today, an opinion piece written by one Ingrid Jacks, entitled, "Divorce Glow-Ups, Man-Hating Books, I Worry About Marriage," which in a nutshell is an ode to man-blaming and women avoiding responsibility itself.
Sure.
I mean, isn't it interesting how two articles essentially saying the same thing came out within a day of each other? Two articles which talk about...
It seems like movie releases in the summer when the two movies that are almost exactly the same as the same movie coming out. It's similar to that.
How women say that men are the problem because they refuse to sit still and allow women to bash them. I mean, the fact they came out within a day of each other, well, coincidence? Methinks not. No, this is another typical feminist tactic, one where they make a claim, then have others repeat it, and cite it until said claim becomes the narrative, becomes the truth. It's exactly how they created the phony wage gap, how they created the lie that women, and only women, are victims of domestic violence, created the misrepresentation that only 2% of allegations are false, created the outright falsehood that women couldn't have credit cards or bank accounts of their own prior to 1974, when in fact they did and could. This new claim is that women are being harmed because men have chosen to walk away rather than continue to be attacked.
It's funny how it's always harm on women. All right, everything men do ends up being harm to women.
Just
men not doing anything harms women.
The next iteration of that tactic. So let's break it down. Let's talk about what's really being said. On the surface, it's about something called heteropessimism, a new term someone pulled out of their ass designed to label and discredit men by defining it as women's growing feelings of disappointment and antagonism towards relationships with men. Translation: women are pissed that men heard them say they wanted men to leave them alone and then did so.
Sounds
Both
about right.
articles cite Louise Perry as the one who apparently created this term and its definition. And then they go on to use the premise to basically excuse women's behavior. Again, let me restate what was being said, which is that somehow women's feelings of antagonism and disappointment towards heterosexual relationships with men is justified because, well, it's men's fault that women told them to go away and not approach them. And then the men did exactly what the women requested. How dare they, those monsters? I mean, the logic, or more precisely, illogic of it all, is astounding. Think about that definition for just a moment, which if you do, I think you'll find it's as pretty remarkable as I do, because essentially what it means is that we've reached a point where there's an accepted term describing growing pessimism towards relationships with men. Or to take out all the gobbledygook and put it another way, it's okay for women to not want to be in relationships with men now. Even though men have made it abundantly clear, they're not the least bit interested in relationships with women, and have been for some time now. It's almost like they've never heard of MGTOW, and instead, in a stroke of genius that no one's ever considered before, created this brand new thing called WGTOW. The level of
It's funny because Destro's been using WGTOW for a while.
Projection and avoidance going on would impress a lifelong politician. And let's be clear, this didn't happen in a weekend, didn't appear because of one podcast, didn't suddenly materialize because someone posted a spicy take on TikTok. No, what's happening is a reflection of years of changing attitudes, years of changing expectations, years of changing conversations. And here's where the articles get interesting, because they talk about a best-selling novel in which men are portrayed as either incompetent fools or sexist villains. Then they say something I think is the single most honest sentence in either piece. Quote, "The men are cartoonish because they reflect a culture that has given up on men and doesn't care to understand them." Let me repeat that because I think it sums up the problem perfectly. A culture that has given up on men and doesn't care to understand them.
Correct.
Bingo. That's exactly what's been going on, not just now, but for the better part of 6 decades. The only difference is that now, men are responding to it. Responding by walking away. Now, here's the real question, the one they go to great lengths to avoid bringing up in either article, let alone answering, which is,
what happened?
What if what they're saying, that would be the men, is true? What if we've spent years building a culture that increasingly treats men as a problem to be managed instead of people to be understood? Why is anyone surprised that men have stopped volunteering for relationships after all of that? I mean, is it really that hard to understand? Is it really beyond women's ability to comprehend?
It is, because they don't see us as people. That's the sad thing about all of this. We're not even people.
Apparently so, because for years I and literally millions of other men have been talking about marriage, talking about dating, talking about family court.
And we appreciate you, Dan. We appreciate all the men in this space, to tell you the truth. Like, even the extreme ones are still somewhat appreciated.
Talking about unrealistic expectations. Talking about the risks every man knows exists. You don't have to agree with every concern. You don't even have to agree with most of them. But just dismissing men's concerns isn't the same as answering them. And I think that's where the conversation has gone off the rails. The article also quotes one Elizabeth Gilbert, who said, "The worst thing a woman can do, statistically speaking, is to get married to a man." Of course, she gives no citation for said statistics, mostly because there isn't any legitimate ones to cite. The fact is, the overwhelming data shows that married women are not only happier, but live longer and earn more money than their single counterparts. Something that Ingrid Jacks, to her credit, pointed out in her article. Later, it quotes another statement from Gilbert when she says, "Marriage is a very good deal for men. It's not a good deal for women." I'm guessing she's never spoken to a married man in her life, because the real male loneliness epidemic isn't single men who aren't interested in dating. No, it's married men stuck in relationships with women who ignore and mistreat them, with no way for them to escape other than to lose everything they've built over the years to the very woman who's ignoring him. And here's the thing, whether you agree with those statements or not isn't my point. My point is that ideas have consequences. Culture has consequences. Messaging has consequences. And when multiple generations of men are growing up repeatedly seeing and hearing that marriage is a losing proposition, that relationships are something to escape, that the opposite sex is more burden than benefit, then how can anyone really be shocked that fewer men, and indeed apparently now women, are deciding not to get married? This isn't a mystery.
I don't think women decide this. They're forced into it. Remember, women don't get to decide if they get married or not. We decide if they get married or not. And we don't want to get married.
Cause and effect. Now, to be fair, I think both of these articles are actually trying to help women. I do think both authors are trying to help women make sense of it all, but failing miserably. Why? Because while they make several salient points, they avoid the biggest one of all, the one that needs to be made the most, which is that women have no one to blame but themselves. They don't in any way really hold women accountable at all. They don't assign them any responsibility whatsoever. Yet the fact is that responsibility is almost entirely theirs. It's women who've created this environment. They weaponized Me Too and Believe All Women. They made false allegations against men of assault, SA, or just plain creepiness by the millions every year. They've told men repeatedly that they didn't want them, didn't need them, and don't want them to approach. Men listened. Oh boy, did they listen. And they responded, not with anger, but indifference. Men chose not to scream, not to yell, not to make millions upon millions of TikToks bashing women like women have done to men. No?
No, we just make videos talking about how they bash us and make fun of them, which is still pretty funny.
Instead, they just turned and walked away. And they're not going to be coming back anytime soon. Which brings me to the final point that I want to make. Because one thing I find fascinating is the timing of it all. For years, plenty of men have been out there saying they were opting out. Most stopped using dating apps. Many stopped approaching women at all. More and more are delaying marriage or saying they will never see the benefit in doing it.
Passport Bros is growing. It's actually growing faster than when I first started, when the Passport Bro trend kind of started, I guess. But more men realize they're just going to live a better life somewhere else. Everything's cheaper. Yeah, maybe the culture's a little different, the language is a little different, but as long as you live a good life and the people around you actually genuinely love you back, who gives a fuck?
The majority of men now have decided that remaining single makes more sense for them. And I don't say that as a flex. Don't even say it with any real joy. It's just simply fact. Fact that no one, most of all women and the authors of these articles, wants to admit. For a long time, that conversation received very little curiosity. It was often met with ridicule, with assumptions, with the idea that the only possible explanation was that something was wrong with the men, what caused them to make those decisions. But now, the conversation has shifted. Now, major publications are asking why relationships seem increasingly difficult. Now we're hearing concerns about loneliness, not just for men, but women. We're hearing about declining marriage and birth rates, about fewer families being formed. And yes, those are absolutely worthwhile conversations. In fact, ones I think we must have.
I agree. I did a video with Kate, right? And she commented down below on the comment of the video, and she's like, I like that you're looking into the future and seeing how we can solve some of these things. And it's like, that's what the big thing is. If we can solve at least women and men looking past each other and at least maybe can form a little bit more families, I'm all for it.
But here's the part I think that is still missing. If we genuinely are interested in understanding why people are making different choices, then we have to be willing to hear the explanations they actually give, not the explanations we assume they must have. The Post article ends by saying men and women need to find a way back to each other, and I agree with that completely. I don't think healthier relationships come from more resentment. I don't think...
My goal of this channel is not to separate men and women more, right? It's to just inform men and for the men to protect themselves. But I also genuinely want you guys to genuinely want families, right? I say this all the time. Again, I feel stupid. I really do, always pushing for the thing that's I feel like is a little bit more of a detriment in today's society than it is ever been. But I also feel like having kids and a family is the end all be all. right? With those things, I think you fulfill your life. That's the chunk that's missing out of your life that you can't get unless you get those things, unless you experience those things. And it's sometimes good, sometimes bad, but I'm just saying it is an experience that you're going to miss out on.
Stronger families come from more contempt, and I don't think either sex benefits from viewing the other as a caricature. But finding a way back starts with something simple, something that so far hasn't happened, which is that people need to start listening, actually listening to what we men have to say. They need to not just listen to their concerns, but acknowledge them, not just dismiss them, or worse, ridicule them as so many women do. Because if one side believes its concerns are automatically dismissed before they're even heard, then trust doesn't grow. It shrinks. Respect doesn't grow. It shrinks. And when trust and respect disappear, especially for men, they don't make a dramatic speech. They don't slam the door. Most don't even announce anything. They just simply stop showing up, which is exactly what men have been doing for going on 20 years now.
I mean, I look at the comment section all this, guys, I read the comments constantly. And I see, oh yeah, I haven't dated in this long. I haven't dated in this long. I haven't dated in this long. I think like the comments are plastered with men that haven't been on dates or don't really want to date. They just, men have really walked away in such a large number that it's noticeable in almost all media outlets.
And more will be doing so for the next 20 years to come. Maybe, just maybe, understanding why they stopped showing up is the better place to begin. Better than pretending the decision somehow magically appeared out of thin air.
And shout outs to Dan. He's like the uncle that we kind of sorely need, that helps advocate for us and pushes us along and informs us things. And I try to be that uncle too. That's why I bring him along. It's like, if we don't help each other, we're going to end up being like the women, where misery loves company, where they're just putting all of this misery onto the younger generation and screwing the younger generation over. I want the younger generation to have families, but I think protecting themselves and having them be on their grind and purpose before they find a good family is also important, right? At least nowadays, society's changed. Men are changing along with it. Please like, subscribe, comment down below. I really appreciate that, and catch you guys next time. Ciao.